6 warships surged in fast, loud, and way too close. A small marine unit held the line. No speeches, no warnings, just disciplined seamanship against a steel wall. For the next 10 minutes, the water boiled and the gap closed. One Chinese hull drifted into the danger zone. This video breaks down the exact hardstop blocking angle that stopped an encirclement and denied a ramming attempt. How close did metal come to metal, and why did the Chinese hesitate first? Stay with me. You'll see the move that turned a near collision into a cold, controlled standoff. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. Costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video.
See this Chinese warship colliding with a Chinese Coast Guard ship. As you mentioned, they were chasing some boats from the Philippines. Incident, 3 Chinese Coast Guard members were actually on the bow of the boat when the impact happened. This Coast Guard ship was so damaged it took off part of its bow, and as you can see there, the water is very choppy.
6 hulls compressed the circle, so why did the smallest unit on scene dictate the final geometry? The formation looked simple at first glance. Chinese warships eased into a wide arc that kept tightening, throttles up, stacks breathing. They weren't sprinting, they were herding. The marine element held a narrow lane near shoal water, little room to swing, less room to run. 1 utility craft, 1 escort, and a hard boundary at the edge of safe depth. You could hear engines build in waves, then settle. The arc shifted not by miles but by degrees. The squeeze worked on time, not speed. Each pass shaved distance. Spray lifted at the bows. Radios were calm. No one filled the air with noise. The ramming vector formed when the lead vessel adjusted a few degrees inward and let momentum do the talking. That change mattered more than tonnage. Now the issue wasn't who had more steel. It was who owned the angle. Encirclement is a mind game backed by mass. You show a wall, close the gap, and move the target's future options from 3 to 2, then down to 1. You don't need to strike. You need them to blink, flinch the rudder, or back down and create the seam you want.
Coast Guard vessel crashing into one of its own warships. It was chasing vessels from the Philippines in the highly contested South China Sea.
Lives in this part of the world. We all know that the South China Sea is a very volatile part of real estate, and this Chinese warship colliding with a Chinese Coast Guard ship. As you mentioned, they were chasing some boats from the Philippines.
The message is simple. We control space, we control time, we control your choices. If the smaller unit breaks formation to avoid contact, the circle hardens and the narrative writes itself. The counter is a hardstop blocking angle. That's a seamanship move, not a dare. You use your hull like a door braced against a frame. Present beam and momentum into the hostile line of travel just enough to deny a clean bow on lane, but not so much that you drift into them. The point is to keep a buffer while you throw liability and decision back at the closer. Here's the geometry in plain terms. Step 1. Turn in, not away. If you turn out, you lengthen your profile and gift them the arc turn in a few degrees to meet their predicted path. Step 2. Bleed speed to near stop. Engines to idle or a short reverse to kill way. When your wake goes flat, you signal control and reduce variables. Step 3. Offset your bow just off their nose, not dead ahead. That small offset puts your hull where their safest turn is away from you, not into you. With that, you shape a fork. If they hold course, they own collision liability. If they rudder over, the encirclement kinks.
Water cannon. The Philippines boat was also being targeted with a water cannon. It avoided being hit. You see those images there. They were being chased at a high rate of speed when this happened. There were some pictures. You saw a high-ranking officer from the Philippine Coast Guard. They claim that they were trying to get some aid to some fishermen.
Mariners know the burden of close quarters maneuver sits with the vessel that can see and avoid. When one contact shows near-stationary behavior and right-of-way cues, steady bearing, minimal speed, horn if needed, the closing hull inherits the risk ledger. Rules of the road push the mover to prove safe intent. Rules of engagement add a second layer. Avoid escalation, avoid first contact, document compliance. Together, they make the inbound ship do math under stress. The more certain and steady you look, the heavier that math gets on their bridge. Seconds tick.
It falls within the Philippines economic zone, but China has had a constant presence there for years. Here's the important context here. This happened in an area known as the Scarborough Shoal. It's something we've talked about before. Things could have worse because both of these nations claim rights to this waterway.
The Chinese lead ship slides into the danger zone, white water blowing off the bow. You can watch prop wash arc out from the stern when they touch rudder. That's the tell. Both bridges are counting. How much momentum remains? How much helm to clear? Which camera sees which angle? The marine coxswain holds the near stop. The escort edges a half length to keep the lane aligned. No more. Calm voices, short words, one task each. The effect lands fast. The lead ship hesitates a heartbeat, then shifts a fraction to starboard to avoid owning the strike. That tiny move ripples down the arc.
China is blaming the Philippines, saying that it's just trying to disguise this as some kind of aid mission. China is not calling this a collision. In fact, its military officials are not even.
The next hull has to widen its line to prevent its own overlap, and the next must choose between following the leader or cutting inside into shallow water risk. The circle loses symmetry. That's the break. No ramming lane. No cheap push. The Marines didn't win space. They denied an angle. Think of it like a door wedge under a heavy slab. The mass still looms, but the wedge changes how and where it can fall. That is the hard stop's value. You can't outsize the wall, but you can decide its hinge. The surface game was backed by eyes in the sky. The next move shifts from hull geometry to surveillance geometry. Sensors were already mapping who owned which square of sea, and for how long. Now the real question becomes altitude, latency, and how far ahead you can see the squeeze form. Discipline and angle beat mass. When steel closes, geometry decides who blinks. That standoff proved it. A calm helm, a clean hard stop, and the arc broke without a flare or a horn blast. Gray zone pressure met precise seamanship. Liability shifted. Formation wobbled. A small unit held space by owning the angle, not the volume. That's how you deter without sparking the fuse. What would you do in that bridge seat? Hold the hard stop or sidestep the circle? Comment your choice below, and subscribe if you want the tactics that keep small units alive. The next fight is sensors versus speed. We'll map the ISR web that warns before the wake turns white.